Don't come tonight. You'll embarrass me.
The message came while he was tightening his tie, hands already shaking. Don't come tonight. You'll embarrass me. He stared at the screen, the words burning deeper than anger. This wasn't a stranger talking. This was his wife, the woman who once begged him to stand by her, who now acted like his existence was a liability. Outside, the city lights flickered like a stage he was no longer allowed to step onto. Inside, something cracked quietly. What kind of marriage forbids a husband from being seen? What kind of secret needs him gone? He stayed home, swallowing the humiliation, until a notification lit up his phone. One image, one moment, and suddenly, the night wasn't about a party anymore. It was about a truth that would destroy everything he thought he knew. Before we begin, comment your location and local time right now. And if you're ready for a cinematic story of betrayal and reckoning, subscribe and stay with me. The message arrived at 6:47 p.m., just as Noah Kincaid finished tightening his tie in the narrow mirror by the door. Don't come tonight. You'll embarrass me. He read it once, then again, then a third time, slower, as if the meaning might soften if he gave it patience. It didn't. The words stayed sharp, deliberate, final. His reflection stared back at him, early 30s, neatly trimmed hair, a suit he rarely wore anymore because Vivian said it made him look out of place. For a moment, he wondered if this was what embarrassment looked like now. Not shouting, not drama, just being erased. The apartment was quiet, almost staged. Vivian had left an hour earlier, perfume still lingering in the hallway, like a memory that hadn't caught up with reality. She hadn't looked back when she closed the door. She'd been scrolling through emails, already halfway into another world. Her world, the one Noah was apparently no longer fit to enter. He sat on the edge of the couch, phone heavy in his hand. A company party, a celebration, a place where spouses were usually expected, encouraged even, but somehow his presence had become a risk, a liability, something to hide. Noah tried to tell himself it was stress. Vivian's career had been moving fast, too fast. New titles, late nights, sudden business trips that didn't allow questions. He'd supported all of it, paid bills when her paycheck lagged, cooked dinners she never finished, listened while she rehearsed presentations he'd never see. He'd believed that was love, being steady while someone else soared. Still, the message kept pulsing in his chest. Don't come, you'll embarrass me. Outside, rain streaked down the windows, blurring the city lights into long, trembling lines. Noah loosened his tie and let it fall onto the coffee table. He considered replying, something calm, something understanding. He didn't want to fight. He never did. Instead, he typed a single word, okay, and set the phone face down. Like that might stop the shame from leaking out. He stayed home. He made tea. He didn't drink, turned on the television without hearing it. Every few minutes, his eyes drifted to the clock. He imagined Vivian laughing under warm lights, surrounded by people who knew her as confident, brilliant, unstoppable. He wondered which version of her they were meeting tonight, the one who corrected his grammar at dinner, or the one who used to hold his face and promise they were a team. At 8:19 p.m., his phone vibrated again. Unknown number. His first instinct was annoyance. Spam, probably, or a wrong contact. He almost ignored it. Almost. The image loaded slowly, as if giving him time to prepare. A crowded room, glasses raised, soft gold lighting. And there she was, Vivian, her head tilted back in laughter. Noah hadn't heard in months. She looked radiant, alive. A man stood close beside her, his hand resting comfortably at the small of her back, like it belonged there. No caption, no explanation, just proof. Noah's breath caught, sharp and shallow. He enlarged the photo with trembling fingers, searching for context that might save him. A coincidence, a bad angle, anything. But the intimacy was unmistakable. The ease, the familiarity. This wasn't a coworker standing too close. This was someone who knew where to place his hand. His phone buzzed again. She said you wouldn't come. The room seemed to tilt. Noah pressed his palm to his chest, as if to steady his heart. A dozen questions collided in his mind, none forming words. Who sent this? How long had this been happening? And the one that hurt the most, how many nights like this had there been while he waited at home? Believing loyalty was enough, the injustice settled in slowly, like cold. He wasn't angry yet. Anger would come later. What he felt now was something heavier, the realization that he'd been following rules no one else was honoring, that his silence had been convenient, that somewhere along the way, love had been replaced with permission. He looked around the apartment again, seeing it differently now. The framed photos, the shared furniture, the life he thought was mutual, how much of it had been real, how much had been performance. Noah didn't cry. He didn't throw the phone. He simply sat there, absorbing the truth as it rearranged everything he thought he knew. Tonight wasn't just about a party he was forbidden to attend. It was about a door that had been closing for a long time, and the moment he finally heard the lock click, whatever was happening in that room across the city, it was bigger than embarrassment, bigger than a lie told to keep up appearances. It was a fracture that would force choices, consequences, reckoning, and though Noah didn't know it yet, this night would be the beginning of something far larger than betrayal. It would be the night he stopped disappearing. Before we go any further, take a moment and comment your location and local time right now. And if you're ready to follow a cinematic journey of deception, truth, and hard-earned justice, make sure you subscribe, because this story is only just beginning. By morning, the apartment felt unfamiliar, like a place he'd rented by mistake. Noah woke on the couch, with his phone still in his hand. Screen dark now. The image burned into his memory instead. For a few seconds, he forgot. Then it all rushed back, the message. The photo, the casual cruelty of it. His chest tightened, but he forced himself to breathe slowly, deliberately. Panic wouldn't help. Panic never had. He showered, dressed, and went to work as if nothing had changed. That was his skill, normalcy. Years of being the steady one had taught him how to carry weight without letting it show. At the office, he answered emails, nodded in meetings, smiled when required. No one noticed the fracture running through him. No one ever did. It wasn't until lunchtime that the questions started circling again. Not dramatic ones and practical ones. Noah had always been practical. When exactly had Vivian started pulling away? He remembered the shift clearly now. It began the month she landed the consulting role at Hawthorne and Blythe. The night she came home glowing, heels in hand, talking fast about potential and visibility. He'd opened a bottle of cheap champagne they'd been saving, kissed her cheek, told her how proud he was. She'd laughed and said, "This is just the beginning." After that, everything accelerated. New clothes appeared in the closet, sleeker, bolder. Nothing like the comfortable dresses she used to wear around him. Her phone was suddenly face down at dinner, work trips stacked back to back. And somewhere in between, Noah had slowly become an accessory she only used in private. He had told himself it was temporary. Success changed people. Everyone knew that. You just had to be patient, supportive, invisible, if necessary. By the time he got home that evening, Vivian still wasn't back. No text, no call. He didn't ask where she was. He didn't want another lie lodged in his head. Instead, he did something he hadn't done in years. He opened their shared laptop. At first, he felt guilty, like he was crossing a line. Then he remembered the photo, the hand on her back, the message that said she wouldn't be embarrassed tonight, just by him. The laptop held their life in neat folders: finances, travel, utilities. He wasn't snooping aimlessly. He was looking for alignment, dates, patterns. It didn't take long. There were receipts from restaurants he'd never been to, charged to their joint card, hotel pre-authorizations marked as business lodging, clustered around the same weeks Vivian claimed she was visiting clients. Gift purchases, expensive, impersonal, nothing she'd ever bought for him. And then there were calendar invites synced to her email, private entries, vague titles, blocked hours that didn't match the story she'd told. Noah leaned back, hands pressed to his face. This wasn't a single mistake. This was planning, coordination, a parallel life that ran smoothly because he hadn't asked too many questions. He thought back to all the moments he'd swallowed discomfort, the dinners she canceled last minute, the way she corrected him in front of others, the jokes about him being simple or low-key, said with a smile that always seemed just a little too sharp. He'd laughed along, convinced humility was love. At 9:43 p.m., Vivian finally came home. She moved through the apartment like a visitor, heels clicking, keys tossed onto the counter. Her hair was perfect, makeup untouched. She didn't look like someone who'd been working late. She looked like someone who'd been celebrated. "You're still up," she said, glancing at him. "Couldn't sleep?" Noah replied evenly. She shrugged, already halfway down the hall. "Long night. I'm exhausted." He watched her go, noting what she didn't say. No apology, no explanation, no mention of the party, as if forbidding him had been as ordinary as asking him to take out the trash. "Vivian," he called. She paused, hand on the bedroom door, impatience flickering across her face. "What? Did you have a good time?" he asked. The question was simple, neutral. It landed like a stone. She hesitated for half a second too long. "It was fine," she said. "Productive." That was the word she always used when she didn't want details. Noah nodded. "I'm glad." She studied him then, suspicious. Maybe she sensed the shift. Maybe she noticed he wasn't asking for reassurance. "Look," she said, exhaling sharply, "about earlier. I didn't mean it like that. You know how these events are. Optics matter." Optics. He wondered if she realized how much that word cost. "It's okay," Noah said quietly. "I understand." Her shoulders relaxed. She smiled, relieved, not grateful. "Good. I knew you would." She disappeared into the bedroom, leaving the door open just enough for him to hear her phone vibrate. He didn't move. He didn't need to see who it was. That night, Noah lay awake beside her, staring at the ceiling. Vivian fell asleep quickly, breathing deep and even, like someone unburdened. Noah listened to the sound and made a decision that felt both terrifying and inevitable. He would stop explaining himself to someone who had already rewritten the story. He wouldn't confront her, not yet. Confrontation required trust, and that currency was gone. What he needed now was clarity, evidence, control over his own reality. Because whatever game Vivian was playing, she'd assumed one thing without question, that Noah would keep staying home. The next few days passed in a strange, suspended quiet. Vivian acted lighter than usual, humming while she dressed, tapping at her phone with a private smile she didn't bother hiding anymore. Noah noticed everything, the way she angled her screen away, the new passcode she entered with practiced speed, the casual confidence of someone who believed the truth was safely buried. Noah matched her calm. That was the most unsettling part for both of them, though only one of them knew it yet. On Wednesday evening, Vivian mentioned another team dinner. She said it while pouring herself a glass of wine, eyes fixed on the countertop instead of him. "I'll be late," she added. Not a request, a statement. "Okay," Noah replied. She paused, glancing at him, clearly waiting for something more. A question? A protest? When none came, her brow furrowed slightly. "You don't want to know where?" she asked. He shrugged. "You've got work." That answer seemed to satisfy her, but also confuse her. She left soon after, heels clicking confidently down the stairs. Noah waited until the door closed before exhaling. He moved through the apartment with purpose now. Not frantic, focused. He gathered what he could without leaving traces, copies of statements, screenshots saved to a secure drive, timestamps noted in a small notebook he kept hidden in the back of his desk drawer. Each discovery hurt, but it also sharpened him. Pain was becoming information. Later that night, his phone buzzed again, the same unknown number. No image this time, just text. Check the restaurant on Oak Ridge. Private room 830. Noah stared at the screen. His first instinct was to ignore it. Anonymous messages were dangerous, manipulative, but the specificity of it gnawed at him. This wasn't vague cruelty. This was a breadcrumb trail. He looked at the clock. 8:17. For a moment, he stood frozen between two versions of himself. The man who stayed home and the man who finally stopped pretending he was blind. Noah grabbed his jacket. The restaurant was only 15 minutes away. He parked across the street, heart pounding harder with every step. Through the wide front windows, he could see polished wood, low lighting, couples leaning in close. He scanned the room, forcing himself to stay calm. Then he saw her. Vivian sat in a secluded corner, back straight, posture elegant. Across from her sat the same man from the photo, well-dressed, relaxed. His presence filled the space between them like it belonged there. They weren't touching now, but the intimacy was unmistakable. The way she laughed softly, the way he leaned in, speaking low. Noah felt something inside him settle into a cold, solid weight. This wasn't a misunderstanding. This wasn't stress. This was choice. He didn't go inside. He didn't confront them. He stood there long enough to memorize the scene, then turned away. As he reached his car, another message arrived. You deserve better than this. Noah sat behind the wheel, staring at the dark dashboard. He typed a reply before he could stop himself. Who are you? The response came almost instantly. Someone who's watched her do this before. The words hit harder than any image. Before, Noah drove home in silence, every mile stripping away another layer of denial. He replayed the night of the party, the ease with which Vivian had dismissed him, the way she'd trusted he wouldn't show up because she'd known exactly where she'd be and with whom. When he got back to the apartment, he noticed something he hadn't before. Vivian's laptop bag was missing. She rarely took it to dinner. His chest tightened, but he didn't act on impulse. He waited. She came home close to midnight, cheeks flushed, energy high. She looked surprised to see him awake. You're up again, she said. Couldn't sleep. Noah replied. She poured herself water, avoiding his eyes. We wrapped up late. He nodded, as if filing the lie into an archive. I'm glad things are going well for you. That made her look up. There was something calculating in her gaze now, as if she were reassessing him. You've been quiet lately. He met her eyes steadily. I've been listening. The room held its breath. For a moment, he thought she might push, ask what he meant. Instead, she laughed lightly. You always do that, she said. Overthink. She went to bed without another word. Noah stayed up long after she fell asleep, scrolling through old photos on his phone, vacations, birthdays. The early days when Vivian's smile had been unguarded, when she'd reached for his hand in public without hesitation. He wondered when exactly love had turned into leverage. The next morning, he called Maya Serrano. Maya had been his closest friend since college. Practical, sharp, the kind of person who noticed details others missed and never forgot a pattern. She listened, without interrupting, as Noah laid it all out: the message, the photo, the anonymous texts, the restaurant. When he finished, there was a long pause. Noah, she said finally, you need to stop reacting and start documenting. I am, he replied. Good, she said, because this doesn't feel like an affair. It feels like a setup. The word hung between them, heavy and precise. What do you mean? Noah asked. I mean, Maya said carefully, people don't hide like this unless there's more to lose than a marriage. After the call ended, Noah sat at his desk, staring at the notebook in front of him. He added a new page, wrote today's date at the top, underlined it. For the first time since the message that started all of this, fear took a back seat to something else. Resolve. Whatever Vivian was building without him, whatever deal she thought she'd secured by pushing him out of sight, it wasn't going to stay hidden forever. and Noah was done being the man left at home. The decision settled into Noah's bones overnight, not to confront, not to accuse, to move forward with intention. By morning, his fear had organized itself into steps. He started small. He changed passwords, email, cloud storage, banking quietly, methodically. He opened a new account at a different bank during lunch, opting out of paper statements. He copied files to an encrypted drive and hid it behind the breaker panel in the hallway closet, a place Vivian never went. Each action felt disloyal, but he reminded himself, loyalty required truth. He was protecting himself, not betraying anyone. Vivian noticed the shift in him before she noticed anything else. That evening, she hovered in the doorway while he cooked. "You're in a good mood," she said, tone light but eyes searching. "Am I?" Noah replied. "Didn't realize." She smiled thinly. "You just seem focused." "Work's been busy," he said, stirring the pot. "Optics matter." The words landed. She stiffened, just for a beat. Then she laughed and waved it off. But Noah saw the crack. He touched a nerve without raising his voice. Later that night, when Vivian went to shower, Noah checked the hallway mirror and caught his own reflection calmer than he felt, steadier than he'd been in weeks. He wasn't pretending anymore. He was choosing silence with purpose. The unknown number texted again 2 days later. Friday, company offsite, Hotel Meridian. Noah stared at the message, then typed back, "Why are you helping me?" The reply took longer this time. "Because I didn't have proof when it happened to me." A chill ran through him. He thought of Maya's warning. A setup. He typed again. "Who is he?" "Someone who knows how to make people feel chosen." The words felt practiced, worn smooth by use. On Friday afternoon, Vivian packed an overnight bag and kissed Noah's cheek absently. "Team building," she said. "Don't wait up." "I won't," he replied. After she left, Noah sat in the quiet apartment and waited for the feeling to overwhelm him. It didn't. What came instead was a strange clarity. If he was going to see this through, he needed to witness it with his own eyes, without being seen. He drove to the Hotel Meridian just after sunset and parked across the street. The lobby glowed through tall glass panels, people drifting in with lanyards and name badges. He watched Vivian arrive alone, confident, greeted by a man who took her bag before she could reach for it. The same man. He stood taller than Noah had expected, with an ease that suggested authority came naturally to him. Noah didn't follow them inside. He didn't need to. The scene confirmed what he already knew. What mattered now was what came next. Back home, he opened Vivian's laptop bag. It felt invasive, but the zipper slid open easily, as if inviting him. Inside were printed agendas, branded folders, and a thin leather notebook. He flipped it open and felt his breath catch. Dates, initials, locations, notes that weren't professional at all, private jokes, reminders, shorthand that assumed secrecy, and tucked into the back pocket, a folded document with a hotel letterhead, charges, room numbers, extended stays. Noah photographed everything, hands steady, despite the rush in his ears. When he finished, he put the bag back, exactly as he'd found it. He washed his hands. He sat down and waited. Vivian returned after midnight, energized and distracted. She didn't notice the way Noah studied her, as she talked about breakout sessions and alignment. He noticed the faint crease on her cheek where she'd slept on unfamiliar pillows, the confidence that came from being seen by someone who wanted her for more than who she used to be. "You should come next time," she said suddenly, as if offering a kindness. Noah looked up. "I thought I embarrassed you." She laughed, a little too loudly. "I was joking. You know that." He smiled back. "Of course." That night, he dreamed of locked doors and empty rooms. He woke before dawn and sat at the kitchen table until the light changed. On Monday, Maya met him for coffee. He slid his phone across the table, letting her scroll through the images. Her jaw tightened. "This is enough to start protecting yourself," she said. But if you want accountability beyond the marriage, you'll need someone who understands corporate conduct. Do you know anyone? Noah asked. She nodded. Ethan Vale, former compliance officer. He doesn't like bullies with titles. Ethan agreed to meet that afternoon. He was measured, precise, the kind of man who listened more than he spoke. As Noah laid out the evidence, Ethan asked questions that cut through the noise. Power imbalance, he asked. Yes, Noah said. Promotions, access, influence. Then this isn't personal, Ethan said. It's structural, and that makes it traceable. The word traceable sparked something in Noah's chest. For weeks, he'd felt like he was chasing shadows. Now, the path was taking shape. That evening, Vivian announced another late night. Noah nodded and said nothing. After she left, he received one final text from the unknown number. Be careful. He doesn't like losing. Noah set the phone down and looked around the apartment, the life he'd built, the trust he'd given freely. He wasn't reckless. He wasn't angry. He was prepared. For the first time since he'd been told to stay away, Noah wasn't waiting for permission to exist. He was moving with intent toward a truth that would not stay hidden. And whatever came next, he would meet it standing. The next company event was impossible to miss. Vivian mentioned it casually over breakfast, like an afterthought, buttering toast while scrolling through her phone. Quarterly mixer on Thursday, she said. Clients, partners, leadership, big turnout. Noah kept his eyes on his coffee. Sounds important. It is, she replied. Then, without looking up, she added, You don't have to come. It'll be crowded, loud. There it was again. Not a command this time. Something smoother, more practiced. Noah nodded. Okay. Vivian glanced at him, searching for resistance. When she didn't find it, her mouth curved into a satisfied smile. She leaned over and kissed his cheek, light and absent. You're being very understanding lately. He smiled back. I'm learning. Thursday night arrived wrapped in cold air and polished lights. Noah waited until Vivian left, then changed clothes slowly, deliberately. He chose a simple, dark suit. Well-fitted but unremarkable. No statement, no attempt to impress, just himself. As he was, he didn't rush. He didn't rehearse. He simply picked up his coat and walked out the door. The venue was a renovated art hall downtown, all glass and steel. Music pulsed softly through the walls. Noah paused across the street, watching people file in confident, laughing, certain of their place. He felt the familiar urge to turn back, to stay invisible. It passed. Inside, the air smelled of perfume and expensive alcohol. Name badges caught the light as people moved in clusters. Noah blended in easily. No one stopped him. No one questioned why he was there. He realized then how much of his exclusion had existed only in Vivian's voice. He spotted her near the center of the room almost immediately. She stood with practiced ease, a glass in her hand, laughing at something a tall man beside her said. The same man, Graham Holt. His presence radiated authority, relaxed shoulders, easy smile, eyes that evaluated everything. Vivian hadn't seen Noah yet. She was too busy performing. Noah stayed back, listening. He caught fragments of conversation drifting past him. Praise for Vivian's recent work, comments about her drive, a joke about how fast she'd climbed. Each word landed heavier than the last. Then Graham raised his glass slightly and said something that made the group laugh. Vivian laughed loudest. Who knew such brilliance came from such humble beginnings? Graham said, voice smooth, amused. Someone asked what he meant. Vivian tilted her head, smiling. Oh, you should meet my husband. The words hit Noah like a shove. She turned then, finally spotting him. For a split second, her face froze. Surprise, annoyance, calculation. Then she recovered, placing a hand lightly on Graham's arm as she walked toward Noah. You came, she said, voice tight. I was nearby. Noah replied calmly. Her smile didn't reach her eyes. This isn't really your scene. Graham stepped closer, extending a hand. "You must be Noah. I've heard so much." Noah took his hand. The grip was firm. Testing. "All good things, I hope." Graham chuckled. "Vivian tells wonderful stories." "That was when it happened?" Vivian laughed and waved her hand dismissively. "Oh, you know Noah. Sweet, loyal, very grounded. He prefers staying home, keeps things simple." The group smiled politely. Someone nodded. Another sipped their drink. No one defended him. Noah felt the room tilt, not from shock, but from clarity. This wasn't an accident. This was a narrative she'd rehearsed. The supportive wife, the unimpressive husband, the distance carefully drawn. Graham raised an eyebrow. Someone has to make sacrifices, right? Vivian's eyes flicked to Noah, daring him to contradict her. He didn't. He smiled instead. "We all make choices." The conversation moved on. But the damage lingered. Noah stepped away, heart steady now, and let himself observe. He watched Vivian lean closer to Graham when she laughed. Watched how his hand brushed her elbow when he spoke. Watched the way she didn't pull away. Near the bar, two younger associates whispered. One of them glanced at Noah, then back at Vivian. "I thought she was single," one murmured. Noah took a slow breath. His phone vibrated. A message from Ethan. "HR and compliance are here. Don't engage yet." Noah typed back, "Understood." He felt strangely detached, like he was watching a film where he already knew the ending. Vivian was enjoying herself too much to notice the shift in the room. She moved like someone untouchable. Then a woman approached Noah. Mid-30s, sharp eyes, nervous smile. "You're Noah, right?" she asked quietly. He nodded. "I'm Lena," she said. "I just wanted to say, I'm sorry. About earlier." He studied her face. "Sorry for what?" She hesitated, lowering her voice. "The way she talks about you, it's not kind." Something tightened in his chest. "You've heard it before." Lena nodded. "More than once." Before he could respond, Vivian's voice cut through the air. "Noah!" she called sharply. "Can I talk to you?" They stepped aside near a tall sculpture, half hidden from the crowd. "What are you doing?" Vivian hissed. "You can't just show up." "I was invited," Noah said calmly. "By who?" she snapped. He met her gaze. "Does it matter?" Her eyes flashed. "You're making me look bad." The words landed with dull finality. "I'm standing," Noah replied. "That's all." Graham appeared beside them, expression pleasant but eyes cold. "Everything okay?" Vivian forced a smile. "Of course, just a misunderstanding." Noah looked at Graham. "Is it?" The air shifted. Graham's jaw tightened almost imperceptibly. "Let's not cause a scene," Graham said lightly. Noah nodded. "I agree." He turned and walked away, not running, not shaking. As he did, he felt eyes following him, whispers starting, small cracks forming. Across the room, Ethan caught his eye and gave a subtle nod. Vivian stood frozen, watching Noah disappear into the crowd. For the first time that night, her confidence wavered. She had wanted him invisible. Instead, he had been seen, and the story she'd built so carefully was beginning to fray. Noah didn't leave the venue right away. He moved to the edges, where conversations thinned and the music softened, letting the room reveal itself. Once you stopped trying to belong, it was amazing how much you could hear. Near a tall cocktail table, two managers spoke in low voices about fast-tracking talent. Another cluster laughed about a partner's temper, calling it passion, like a euphemism polished to shine. Everywhere Noah looked, status bent truth into shapes people could live with. He felt oddly calm, like he'd stepped behind the curtain and discovered the machinery. Across the room, Vivian had reclaimed her rhythm. She stood with Graham and a small group of executives, glass raised, posture open. Noah noticed something small and devastating. Her left hand was bare, no ring. The skin where it usually sat was pale, unmarked. It wasn't the first time he'd seen it missing lately, But here, under lights, among people who mattered, it felt deliberate. Graham cleared his throat, lifting his glass slightly. "Before we move on," he said, "I want to say a few words about initiative, about stepping up." Polite attention gathered. Vivian angled closer, her smile ready. "Some people wait for permission," Graham continued. "Others recognize opportunity and take responsibility for it." His eyes flicked to Vivian. "That kind of drive is rare." Applause followed, measured, approving. Vivian laughed softly, placing a hand over her heart in a gesture that looked humble. Noah felt the familiar pull of pride tug at him, then snap. He had been part of every step that brought her here. He had just been edited out of the story. "Of course," Graham added, voice light. "It helps when you're unencumbered, free to commit fully." There it was, a line delivered cleanly, like a joke with sharp edges. Vivian didn't correct him. Someone near Noah whispered, "Is she married?" Another answered, "I don't think so." Noah took a breath, slow and steady. The injustice wasn't loud. It was casual, accepted. That was what made it brutal. He drifted toward the hallway that led to the restrooms and private rooms, the music fading behind him. His phone vibrated in his pocket. Unknown number? This time it was a short video. The clip opened on a narrow hallway hotel art. Muted lighting. Vivian and Graham stood too close, voices low. Graham's hand reached out, thumb brushing the inside of her wrist, in a gesture intimate enough to mean something. Vivian laughed, tilting her head, stepping closer. The video ended before anything explicit happened, but the implication was unmistakable. This wasn't speculation. It was choreography. Noah's vision narrowed. The sound of his own pulse filled his ears. He leaned against the wall, grounding himself, counting his breaths the way Maya had taught him years ago when anxiety first crept into his life. In, hold, out. He straightened just as voices approached from around the corner. "Can't be sloppy," Graham was saying, "not with timing." Vivian laughed. "Relax. He's predictable." Noah froze. "He won't cause trouble," she continued. "He never does." Graham's tone softened. "That's why I like you. You understand leverage." They walked past him, without seeing him, turning into a private room. Noah stood there, the words echoing. Predictable, leverage. The language of strategy, not love. He didn't follow. He didn't need to. The pieces were aligning into something uglier than infidelity. This was positioning, control. A story being told with him, cast as the quiet background figure who wouldn't interfere. His phone buzzed again, this time from Ethan. "Now," the message read. Noah returned to the main floor, heart steadying as he moved. He spotted Ethan near a small group that included a woman with an HR badge and a man he recognized from the firm's ethics committee. Their faces were neutral, attentive, waiting. Vivian emerged moments later, radiant and unaware. When she saw Noah again, irritation flared. She crossed the room with purpose. "What are you still doing here?" she hissed. "You've made your point." "No," Noah said quietly. "I've learned it." Graham appeared at her side, smile fixed. "Let's keep things professional." Noah nodded. "I agree." He turned slightly, addressing the woman with the HR badge. "Excuse me," he said, voice calm, audible but not loud. "May I ask a question?" The circle tightened subtly. "Of course," the woman replied. Noah met her eyes. "Is it standard policy for senior partners to present subordinates as unencumbered during public remarks?" A ripple moved through the group. Vivian's face drained of color. Graham chuckled. "I'm not sure what you're implying." "I'm not implying," Noah said. "I'm asking." The ethics committee member frowned. Context. Noah held up his phone not to show the video. "Not yet. I have reason to believe professional boundaries may be blurred here, and I'd prefer to address it the right way." Silence fell. The music seemed suddenly too loud, then too quiet. Vivian stepped forward, laugh brittle. "This is ridiculous. He's upset. We had a misunderstanding." Noah looked at her, not with anger, but with something like sadness. "You told them you were unencumbered." She opened her mouth, then closed it. The HR woman exchanged a glance with the ethics member. Perhaps we should continue this conversation privately. Graham's smile tightened. That won't be necessary. It will, Ethan said, stepping into view. And documented. The room shifted. People pretended not to watch while watching closely. Vivian's confidence cracked, just enough for fear to seep through. As they moved toward a side room, Noah felt the weight of every moment he'd been dismissed, minimized, erased. He wasn't shouting. He wasn't accusing. He was standing in the truth she'd assumed he'd never touch. Inside the private room, the air was colder. The HR woman asked questions. Dates, interactions, policies. Noah answered when addressed, carefully, truthfully. He provided names, times, the existence of evidence without theatricality. Graham objected. Vivian tried to laugh it off, then tried to cry. When it was over for tonight, at least Noah stepped back into the hall alone. His legs trembled now that the adrenaline faded. He leaned against the wall, eyes closed, letting it pass. His phone vibrated one last time. Unknown number. Good, the message read. You're not invisible anymore. Noah slid the phone into his pocket and straightened. Whatever came next would be messy, slow, painful. But the lie had been spoken aloud, and it no longer belonged to him. He walked out into the cold night air, shoulders squared, knowing one thing with absolute clarity. They had counted on his silence. They had miscalculated. The investigation didn't explode overnight. It crept. Emails arrived with careful wording. Meetings were scheduled, then rescheduled. Vivian came home the next day, pale and furious, slamming her bag onto the counter like the apartment itself had betrayed her. "What did you do?" she demanded. Noah didn't look up from the sink. He was washing a mug he hadn't used. "I asked a question. You humiliated me," she snapped. "Do you have any idea how that looked?" He turned off the water and faced her. "I know how it looked when you said you were unencumbered." Her mouth opened, then closed. She recovered quickly, anger sharpening into accusation. "You're twisting things?" Graham was speaking in general terms. "About you," Noah said quietly. Vivian laughed, brittle. "You're paranoid. You always have been. This is why I didn't want you there." The words landed exactly where she intended. Old wounds, familiar shame. For a second, Noah felt the urge to apologize, muscle memory from years of smoothing over her edges. He let the urge pass. "I won't argue," he said. "If there's nothing to hide, this will blow over." Her eyes flicked away, just for a second, long enough. That night, she slept facing the wall, phone tucked under her pillow. Noah lay awake, staring at the ceiling, listening to the quiet hum of the city. He felt hollowed out and strangely steady at the same time, like a building stripped to its beams. By midweek, the tone shifted. Vivian stopped yelling and started negotiating. She cooked dinner, real dinner, for the first time in months. She asked about his day. She touched his arm when she spoke, like she used to. The change was so sudden, it was almost dizzying. "You know," she said lightly, "this could all go away if you just clarified things, told them you misunderstood." Noah set his fork down. "Clarified what?" "That we're married," she said, as if it were obvious. "That there's nothing inappropriate." He met her gaze. "Is that true?" Her hand tightened around her glass. "You're being dramatic. I'm being precise." She pushed back from the table, frustration flaring. "You don't understand how this works. You don't understand what's at stake." "I understand leverage," Noah said. "You taught me." She stared at him, truly seeing him, for the first time in weeks. Not the accommodating husband, not the predictable one, someone else. The anonymous text stopped after that. No more breadcrumbs, no more warnings. It was as if whoever had been watching decided Noah no longer needed guidance. Or perhaps they'd said all they could. 2 days later, Ethan called. "They've escalated," he said. "Formal review? They'll interview you." "When?" Noah asked. Tomorrow morning, Noah nodded, heart steady. I'll be there. That night, Vivian didn't come home. Noah didn't text. He didn't call. He packed a small bag. Instead, documents, clothes, the essentials. Not to leave yet, just to be ready. The interview was clinical. A small room, neutral faces, questions designed to test consistency. Noah answered slowly, carefully, never embellishing. He didn't show the video. He didn't need to. He referenced dates, behaviors, patterns. He spoke as a witness, not a victim. When it was over, the HR director leaned back and folded her hands. "Thank you for your cooperation," she said. "We may have follow-up questions." Noah stood. "I'll make myself available." As he left the building, his phone buzzed. "Vivian, where are you?" The text read. "At work," he replied. "We need to talk. Now. I'm busy," he typed back. The response came immediately. "You don't get to do this." Noah stared at the words, then locked his phone. That evening, he met Maya for a walk along the river. The city lights reflected off the water, fractured and restless. "She's scared," Maya said, after he told her everything. "That's why she's switching tactics." "I know," Noah replied. "And Graham, he'll fight," Maya said. "Men like him always do." Noah watched the water move. "I'm not fighting him." Maya glanced at him. "Then what are you doing?" "I'm stepping out of the way," Noah said, letting the truth do what it does. The next morning, the other shoe dropped. Vivian's firm placed her on administrative leave, pending the outcome of the investigation. Graham was temporarily relieved of supervisory duties. The language was careful, sanitized, but the meaning was clear. Vivian came home early, eyes red, movements sharp. "This is your fault," she said, pacing. "Everything I built. You built it with lies," Noah said. She stopped, turning on him. "I built it because I was tired of being small, because I wanted more. And you decided I was in the way." She said nothing. The silence stretched, heavy and final. "I never wanted to hurt you," she said at last, voice softer. Noah felt the truth of that sentence settle. "You just didn't care if you did." Her face crumpled. For a moment, she looked like the woman he'd married. Then it hardened again. "What do you want?" she asked. Noah thought of the ring she took off, the stories she told, the ease with which she'd erased him. He thought of the man he'd been waiting at home, believing love meant endurance. "I want my life back," he said. She scoffed. "You think you can just walk away?" "I think I already have." That night, Noah slept on the couch by choice. He woke before dawn, packed his bag, and left a note on the counter. It wasn't angry. It wasn't long. "I'm taking space. Don't contact me unless it's about logistics." He closed the door behind him and stood in the hallway for a moment, breathing. The building smelled like old carpet and rain, ordinary, grounded. As he stepped outside, the city greeted him without judgment. Cars passed. People hurried to work. Life continued. Noah walked forward, not knowing how long the road would be, only that he was finally on it. Noah moved into a short-term rental on the east side of the city, a quiet place with clean lines and neutral colors that felt deliberately impersonal. It was the first space he'd had in years that didn't echo with someone else's expectations. The first night there, he slept on top of the sheets, fully dressed, listening to the unfamiliar sounds of pipes and traffic. It wasn't comfort he felt, it was safety, and that was enough. Vivian didn't respect the note. She called twice the next morning, then 3 times. Then she texted, oscillating between outrage and tenderness, so fast it felt rehearsed. "You're overreacting. We can fix this. You're destroying everything. I miss you." Noah read the messages once and archived them. He knew better than to argue through a screen. Words had been her favorite tool. He needed distance from them. At work, his concentration sharpened. Tasks that used to take hours finished in minutes. There was something clarifying about having the fog lifted. He took lunches alone, walked instead of scrolling, and let the days stack cleanly on top of each other. At night, he met with Ethan, reviewing timelines and anticipating questions. The process was slow by design. Institutions protected themselves first. Truth came later, if it came at all. Midweek, Ethan called with an update. They've requested internal communications, emails, calendars, expense approvals. There are discrepancies. Noah closed his eyes, relief and dread mixing. What kind? Patterned approvals, Ethan said. Favors granted without oversight, promotions synced to off-site mentoring. It's not just Vivian. Noah felt a twist in his stomach. How many? Enough to matter. The magnitude reframed everything. Vivian hadn't just stepped into something wrong. She'd joined a current, already flowing. The thought didn't absolve her. It complicated her. He wondered how many times she'd told herself it was temporary, how many times she'd traded a boundary for momentum. That evening, Maya joined Noah for takeout on the floor of his new place. They ate quietly for a while, the city breathing through the windows. She came by my office, Maya said eventually. Vivian asked about you. Noah stiffened. What did you say? That you're safe. That you asked for space. I didn't give her anything else. Thank you. Maya studied him. She's unraveling. He nodded. She always did when she couldn't control the narrative. The next day, a thick envelope arrived at Noah's office. Legal letterhead. He didn't open it right away. He took it to a cafe, ordered black coffee, and waited until his hands stopped shaking. The letter was measured and menacing in equal parts. Allegations of defamation, suggestions of retraction, a warning that continued mischaracterizations could result in legal action. It didn't mention the investigation. It didn't need to. Ethan read it and snorted, fishing. So we ignore it. We document it, Ethan said. And we keep going. That night, Vivian showed up at the rental. Noah heard the knock and froze. It came again, harder this time. He didn't answer. He stood in the hallway, heart pounding, listening to her voice through the door. Noah, please. I know you're in there. He closed his eyes. I messed up, she said, voice breaking. I know I did, but this is bigger than us. They're circling. Graham's lawyers are circling. I need you. The old instinct surged the reflex to step in, to fix, to shield. He pressed his palm against the wall and breathed through it. You can't do this to me, she continued. After everything I did for us. Noah opened the door, chain still latched. You did things for you, he said quietly. I let you. That's on me. Tears streaked her face. I never meant for it to go this far. You took your ring off, Noah said. You told them I was predictable. You called me leverage. She flinched. Please, she whispered. If you just tell them it was a misunderstanding. No, Noah said. Not loud, not cruel, just final. Her face hardened, grief snapping into fury. You think you're some kind of hero now. I think I'm done lying, he replied. She stared at him, eyes emptying. You'll regret this. Maybe, Noah said, but I won't disappear. He closed the door gently and slid the chain free, leaning his forehead against the wood until the sound of her footsteps faded. The investigation intensified. Interviews widened. Lena reached out again, trembling but resolute, offering her own account. Others followed, quietly, carefully. The pattern emerged, like a constellation, isolated points, forming something undeniable when connected. Graham went on leave, officially for health reasons. Unofficially, the firm's tone shifted. Press releases softened. Internal memos emphasized ethics. The machine adapted. Vivian's calls stopped. Her texts turned transactional. Lawyer wants dates. Need documents. Please respond. Noah responded to what mattered, nothing else. One evening, as he walked home from the grocery store, the unknown number lit up his phone again. He hadn't seen it in weeks. You're not alone, the message read. I'm testifying. Noah stopped under a streetlight, the bags cutting into his hands. Thank you, he typed. The reply came after a pause. I wish someone had done this for me. Noah tucked the phone away and continued home. The night air sharp and clean. He cooked a simple meal, washed the dishes, and sat by the window. For the first time in months, he felt tired in a normal way. Earned. Later, Ethan called with a calm voice that couldn't hide the weight of it. They're moving to formal findings. It'll take time. But the ground has shifted. Noah leaned back, eyes closed. What about Vivian? Ethan exhaled. Consequences are coming? For everyone involved. After the call, Noah stared at the ceiling, thinking of the man he'd been the one who believed love meant shrinking. He felt grief for that version of himself. And gratitude. He didn't know how the story would end. Not yet, but he knew how it wouldn't. He wouldn't stay home anymore. He wouldn't accept erasure, dressed up as respect. He wouldn't confuse silence with peace. Outside, the city hummed, indifferent and alive. Noah turned off the light and slept, truly slept, for the first time since the night he'd been told not to come. The discovery came quietly, the way real damage often did. Noah wasn't digging for it. He was paying bills. Saturday morning sunlight spilled across the small dining table in his rental as he logged into the joint credit account they still technically shared. He'd been checking balances regularly now, tracking movement, making sure nothing else slipped past him unnoticed. At first, everything looked normal. Then he noticed a line item he didn't recognize. A credit line increase. Substantial. Approved 2 weeks earlier. His pulse quickened. He clicked deeper, fingers steady, mind alert. The application bore his name, his digital signature, his consent, time-stamped at 11:42 p.m. On a night he vividly remembered falling asleep on the couch, waiting for Vivian to come home. No, he whispered. He pulled the original agreement, scanned the metadata. The signature wasn't forged. It was authorized through a device linked to their shared network, a device he'd trusted, a system he'd never questioned. The realization landed with a sickening clarity. This wasn't just betrayal of the heart. It was preparation, insurance, a way to shift risk, to ensure that if things went wrong, he'd be standing in front of the fallout. Noah sat back, breathing carefully. Panic pressed at the edges of his vision, but he forced it down. Panic made mistakes. He needed precision. He called Ethan. That's serious, Ethan said, after Noah explained. But it's also traceable. Timing, IP logs, usage patterns. She did this while we were still together. Noah said, yes, Ethan replied, and that matters. Noah ended the call and stared at the wall. The apartment felt smaller suddenly, as if the truth had sucked the air from it. He thought back to all the nights Vivian had asked for his phone, just for a second. The times she'd insisted on handling finances because she was better with numbers, the way trust had been slowly, systematically converted into access. He texted Maya and asked her to come by. When she arrived, Noah showed her everything, the credit line, the timing, the amounts. Maya swore under her breath. This isn't messy, she said. This is deliberate. What do I do? Noah asked. You freeze what you can, she said, and you document the rest. This changes leverage. That word again. By Sunday afternoon, Noah had placed alerts on every account, initiated a credit freeze, and filed a preliminary report documenting unauthorized use pending investigation. Each step felt surreal, like he was cleaning up after a storm that hadn't officially been acknowledged yet. Vivian called that night. He let it go to voicemail. Her message was tight, controlled. I saw the alerts. What are you doing? Noah waited an hour before replying. Protecting myself. Another message came instantly. You're making this worse. He typed back slowly. You already did. Silence followed. Long, heavy. The next morning, Noah received an email from the firm's legal department requesting additional information related to financial disclosures. His stomach clenched, but he read it twice, carefully. This wasn't an accusation. It was a net widening. At lunch, Lena met him in a quiet park, nerves etched into her posture. She handed him a folder without meeting his eyes. I kept copies, she said, in case I ever needed to explain myself. Inside were emails polite on the surface, loaded beneath, requests framed as opportunities, expectations disguised as mentorship, and subtle reminders of support that felt anything but voluntary. I didn't say no, Lena whispered. I just stalled. And after a while, he stopped asking. But Vivian, she leaned in. Noah closed the folder gently. Thank you for trusting me. She nodded, tears brimming. I'm tired of pretending this is normal. That evening, Ethan confirmed what Noah already suspected. There's a pattern of financial entanglement, he said. Expense approvals routed through personal channels. Benefits tied to proximity, not performance. And the credit line? Noah asked. Ethan paused. That's the part they can't spin. The weight of it all pressed down on Noah as he walked home. Vivian hadn't just risked her career. She'd risked his future, his credit, his name. The trust he'd given freely had been converted into collateral. That night, Vivian showed up again. No knocking this time. She had a key. Noah heard the door open and turned slowly. She stood there, eyes sharp, jaw set. You froze the accounts, she said. Yes. You filed a report. Yes. She stepped closer, voice dropping. You're trying to ruin me, he met her gaze. I'm trying to survive. Her laugh was hollow. You always did like playing the victim. Something inside Noah finally snapped, not violently, not loudly, but cleanly. You used my name, he said. You put me in debt without asking. You told people I didn't exist. She faltered, just for a moment. Then she straightened. I did what I had to do, to get ahead, to not go back to being nothing. She shot back. Noah nodded slowly. And you decided I was expendable. She didn't answer. Get your things? Noah said quietly. She stared at him. This is my home too. Not tonight, he replied. And not like this. For a long moment, he thought she might fight him. Instead, she scoffed, turned, and began grabbing items with sharp, angry movements. When she reached the door, she paused. You think you've won, she said. But you don't know how this ends. Noah's voice was steady. I know how it begins, with the truth. After she left, Noah locked the door and sank onto the couch, exhaustion crashing over him. His hands shook now that the adrenaline was gone. He pressed them together, grounding himself. The next days blurred into a rhythm of calls, emails, confirmations. The investigation widened beyond what Noah had imagined. Other names surfaced, other accounts. The firm's language shifted from cautious to corrective. One afternoon, Ethan called with a tone that made Noah sit down. They've identified misuse of authority, he said, financial coercion, and misrepresentation involving spouses. Noah closed his eyes. What happens now? Now, Ethan said. People start protecting themselves, and that means deals, disclosures, consequences. After the call, Noah stood by the window, watching the city move. He felt grief for the marriage he thought he had, for the years he'd spent shrinking. But beneath it was something new, a spine he hadn't known he possessed. Vivian texted once more that night, just 3 words, "You forced this." Noah stared at the screen, then deleted the thread entirely. He went to bed knowing that whatever came next, legal battles, public fallout, lonely mornings, it would be faced head-on, not hidden, not absorbed quietly. They had counted on his silence, on his trust, on his fear of being alone. They had never planned for him to wake up. The tone of the messages changed again, not softer this time, sharper, efficient. Vivian stopped pleading and started coordinating, as if the marriage had been quietly reclassified as a project that needed managing. Her lawyer emailed Noah's lawyer, someone Maya had helped him retain, requesting mediation to resolve outstanding financial misunderstandings. The phrase made Noah's jaw tighten. Misunderstandings implied accidents. There had been none. At the mediation, Vivian sat across from him with perfect posture and unreadable eyes. She wore the same calm smile she used at work, the one that suggested control even when things were slipping. Her lawyer spoke first, laying out a framework that assumed Noah's cooperation as a given. Vivian watched him closely, waiting for the version of him she knew, the one who would compromise early to keep the peace. Noah listened without interrupting. When it was his turn, he slid a thin folder across the table. His lawyer said nothing. The mediator opened it and paused. "What is this?" the mediator asked. "Documentation," Noah replied, "of unauthorized credit use, timing, access logs, and a preliminary fraud report." Vivian's smile flickered. "This is extreme," her lawyer said. "We can address any discrepancies." "These aren't discrepancies," Noah said calmly. "They're actions." The mediator cleared her throat. "Perhaps we should take a short break." Vivian leaned in as the lawyers stepped outside. "You're enjoying this," she hissed. "No," Noah said. "I'm done paying for it." She stared at him, searching for leverage that wasn't there anymore. "You think this makes you strong? I think it makes me honest," he replied. The break ended. The tone shifted. Concessions appeared. The framework changed from assumptions to negotiations. Noah felt the balance tip, not in his favor exactly, but away from her certainty. It was enough. Outside the building, his phone buzzed. "Ethan." "They're unraveling," Ethan said. "Graham's counsel reached out. They want to talk." "About what?" "Containment." Noah closed his eyes. "I won't be a bargaining chip." "You won't be," Ethan said. "But your testimony matters, and so does your silence." They met the next day, in a neutral office, with windows that didn't open. Graham wasn't there. Only his attorney, polished and cautious. "We're prepared to acknowledge inappropriate conduct," the attorney said, choosing each word like it cost money. "We're also prepared to settle certain claims." "And the truth?" Noah asked. The attorney hesitated. "The truth can be complicated." Noah leaned back. "It's actually very simple. You used power to extract loyalty. You encouraged secrecy. You rewarded proximity. And when things threatened to surface, you counted on spouses to absorb the damage." Silence stretched. "We're not admitting to," the attorney began. "I'm not asking you to," Noah said. "I'm telling you what I will say if asked." Ethan watched closely. The attorney adjusted his cufflinks. "What would it take for you to be cooperative?" Noah didn't answer immediately. He thought of the rental apartment, the nights he'd slept fully clothed, the credit alert emails, the way Vivian had called him predictable. "Accountability," he said, "and protection for the people who come forward." The attorney's jaw tightened. "That's ambitious. It's necessary," Noah replied. The meeting ended without resolution, which felt like a victory. Outside, Ethan exhaled. "You didn't blink." "I'm tired of blinking," Noah said. The firm announced preliminary findings the following week. Language was careful, but the message landed. Violations of conduct policy, misuse of authority, financial impropriety under review. Graham was placed on indefinite leave, pending further action. Vivian's role was suspended without pay. The headlines didn't name Noah. They didn't need to. The ripple reached him anyway. Old acquaintances texted. Co-workers asked careful questions. Some offered sympathy. Others offered silence. Vivian sent a single message that night. "They're blaming me." Noah stared at the screen. He typed. Deleted. Typed again, then stopped. He didn't owe her comfort. He sent one line. "Tell the truth." Her reply came minutes later. "You don't understand how this works." He set the phone down. The credit issue moved faster than he expected. The bank flagged the line as contested. Charges were frozen, pending investigation. The fraud report escalated. Vivian's lawyer requested a settlement to resolve shared liability. Noah declined. At therapy, something Maya had insisted on. Noah spoke for the first time about the humiliation. Not the betrayal. The humiliation. The way being hidden. had taught him to make himself smaller? You learn to equate love with endurance, the therapist said gently, and endurance with worth. Noah nodded. I thought if I stayed, it would mean something. It does, she said. It means you're capable of loyalty. It doesn't mean you deserved what happened. That distinction settled into him slowly, like a stitch pulling closed. One evening, Lena called. Her voice trembled, but there was steel underneath. I testified, she said. They tried to scare me. It didn't work. Thank you, Noah said. For what? For refusing to disappear. When the firm released its final findings weeks later, the language sharpened. Graham resigned. The firm announced reforms. Vivian's employment was terminated for cause. The machine corrected itself, the only way it knew how, by sacrificing pieces to preserve the whole. Vivian came by the rental one last time, to collect the rest of her things. She moved more slowly now, eyes dull, confidence cracked. She paused in the doorway. You could have stopped this, she said quietly. Noah shook his head. You could have, quote. She searched his face, perhaps looking for triumph. She found none, only distance. I hope it was worth it, she said. Noah answered honestly. It wasn't about worth, it was about survival. She left without another word. That night, Noah sat by the window and watched the city breathe. He felt no rush of victory, only a steady quiet. The truth had done its work, and it had cost him, but it had also given him something back: his name, his future, his right to stand without apology. He turned off the light and slept, knowing the road ahead would still be long. But it would be his. The silence after the fallout was louder than any argument Noah and Vivian had ever had. No texts, no emails, no urgent calls demanding explanations. Just absence. It settled into Noah's days like a new climate, cold in the mornings, oddly clear by afternoon. He returned to the apartment they once shared for the first time in weeks, accompanied by Maya. The place felt smaller than he remembered, like a set after the actors had left. Vivian's presence lingered in the details, the curated shelves, the throw pillows chosen for appearance rather than comfort, the faint trace of her perfume clinging to the curtains. They worked methodically. Maya packed documents and personal items, while Noah moved through rooms that felt more like exhibits than memories. In the bedroom, he paused at the nightstand. The drawer was empty. The ring box was gone. He felt a brief, sharp pang, not for the marriage, but for the version of himself who'd believed in it. Take a breath, Maya said softly. He nodded and kept moving. That afternoon, Ethan called with an update that sounded almost unreal. The firm is negotiating a compliance agreement with regulators. They want to present cooperation. That means transparency. And me, Noah asked. You're protected, Ethan said. Whistleblower provisions apply, financially and professionally. Noah exhaled. Slow. Protection didn't feel like triumph. It felt like permission to stop bracing. He started rebuilding his routines. Morning runs by the river, cooking meals he actually liked, reaching out to friends he'd quietly drifted from when his life had narrowed to supporting someone else's ambition. Some answered with warmth, others with awkward pauses that spoke volumes. He accepted both without bitterness. One evening, his sister called someone he hadn't spoken to deeply in years. I heard things, she said carefully. Noah leaned against the counter. I figured. There was a pause. I'm sorry I didn't check in more, he smiled faintly. I didn't make it easy. They talked for an hour, about nothing and everything. When the call ended, Noah felt lighter, as if a window had been cracked open somewhere inside him. Weeks later, a letter arrived confirming the bank's findings: unauthorized access, liability removed, credit restored. Noah held the paper in his hands for a long time. It wasn't just financial relief, it was validation, proof that he hadn't imagined the danger. Vivian emailed once after that. The tone was flat, almost formal. I'm contesting the termination. I'll need a statement from you. Noah stared at the screen, then closed the laptop. He didn't respond that night. Or the next day. When he did reply, It was brief. "I'll tell the truth if asked." Her response came hours later. "You always were stubborn." Noah didn't reply again. At therapy, the work deepened. The therapist asked questions that cut past events and into patterns. Why had he accepted being diminished? Why had humiliation felt familiar? Because it wasn't new. Noah said one afternoon, the realization landing with a dull thud, "I grew up learning that love meant not being a burden." The therapist nodded. "And when did you learn you were allowed to take up space?" Noah thought of the moment at the company event, the calm question asked aloud. The way the room had shifted. "Recently," he said, he began to notice changes in how he moved through the world. He spoke more slowly. He said no without apology. When someone interrupted him in a meeting, he calmly continued. Small things. Foundational things. One Friday, Ethan invited Noah to coffee. "I wanted to tell you in person," he said. "Graham's settlement includes a permanent industry bar." Noah blinked. "That's significant." "Yes," Ethan said, "and it only happened because people spoke when it mattered." Noah nodded, feeling the weight of it, not satisfaction, but gravity. On his way home, the unknown number buzzed his phone again after weeks of silence. "It's done," the message read. Noah typed back, "Thank you for starting it." The reply came after a long pause. "Thank you for finishing it." The number went quiet for good. That night, Noah stood on his balcony, city lights stretching out before him. He thought about how close he'd come to staying silent, to absorbing the damage quietly, to letting someone else write the ending. He thought of Vivian, not with rage, but with clarity. She had chosen a path that required erasing him. He had chosen not to comply. The consequences had followed both of them faithfully. A month later, the divorce finalized. Clean, uncontested, Noah signed the papers with steady hands. When it was done, he felt no surge of emotion, just a sense of completion. He moved out of the rental and into a small place closer to the river. It wasn't grand. It didn't need to be. On the first night there, he unpacked slowly, placing books on shelves, hanging one framed photo from years ago, not of Vivian, but of himself at 22, laughing with friends on a trip he'd nearly forgotten. He looked at the photo and smiled. "I remember you," he said quietly. As weeks turned into months, invitations returned. Work events, dinners, gatherings he'd once avoided because he'd been told he didn't belong. He attended when he wanted, declined when he didn't. No explanations required. At one event, someone asked casually, "Are you married?" "No," Noah said. "I'm free." The word felt right. Late one evening, he received a message from Lena. A photo of her new office. A simple caption, "Thank you," Noah replied. With a thumbs up and a smile he didn't try to hide, he turned off his phone and sat by the window, listening to the city. The night was ordinary, peaceful, earned. He wasn't healed in some dramatic, cinematic way. Healing was quieter than that. It showed up in mornings that didn't feel heavy, in choices made without fear, in the knowledge that his presence no longer needed permission. Noah took a breath and let it out, steady and full. The story hadn't ended with applause. It had ended with truth. And that was enough. The first time Noah attended an event purely because he wanted to, it surprised him how ordinary it felt. No spotlight, no whispered judgments, just a room, a few familiar faces, and the quiet awareness that he could leave whenever he chose. That freedom, subtle, unannounced, had become his new measure of success. The invitation came from his department, a modest networking mixer at a neighborhood gallery. Months earlier, he would have declined, convinced he didn't belong among people who spoke confidently about growth and strategy. Now, he put on a jacket, checked the mirror once, and went inside. Conversations ebbed and flowed. Someone recognized him from a past project and asked for his opinion genuinely. Without condescension, Noah spoke, careful not to shrink his voice. When he finished, the person nodded and said, "That's helpful. It felt like a small miracle. As he reached for a drink, his phone buzzed with a notification from Ethan. "For your information," the message read. Regulators requested supplemental statements. "Not urgent, but heads up." Noah typed back a simple acknowledgement. The case had entered its final, grinding phase, the part where institutions documented their learning and moved on. He was ready if needed. He no longer lived in anticipation of the next blow. After the mixer, he walked home along the river, hands in pockets, breath visible in the cool air. The city reflected back at him, lights fractured on water, movement without memory. He liked that it didn't know his past. At home, he found an envelope slipped under his door. No return address. His stomach tightened before he opened it, a reflex he hadn't quite unlearned. Inside was a handwritten note. Neat, controlled. "Noah, I don't expect forgiveness. I need to say this anyway. I was wrong. Not just about what I did, but about who I thought you were. I believe strength meant never needing anyone. I mistook your steadiness for weakness. I was afraid of going back to who I was, and I used you to run forward. I'm sorry, Vivian." He read it twice, then set it down. The words stirred something complicated: recognition, grief, a faint echo of the woman he'd loved. But the letter didn't ask for anything. That mattered. Noah folded it carefully and placed it in a drawer, not as a token of reconciliation. As a record, he didn't need to respond. Some truths didn't require dialogue to be complete. Days later, Ethan called with finality in his voice. "The report is done. Public summary releases Friday." "And?" Noah asked. "And it confirms what we already knew," Ethan said. "Abuse of authority, financial coercion, systemic failure, names named." Noah closed his eyes. "Thank you. For what?" "For treating this like it mattered. It did," Ethan said. "And so did you." Friday arrived quietly. The summary circulated internally first, then beyond. Headlines were cautious, but the substance was unmistakable. A reckoning dressed in professional language. Noah read it once, then closed the browser. He didn't need to see it repeated. His phone lit up with messages, some supportive, some curious, some awkwardly silent. He replied selectively. Boundaries, he'd learned, were not punishments, they were maintenance. That evening, Maya came over with takeout and a bottle of wine. They ate on the floor again, like old times. But this time, the laughter came easily. "You did something rare," she said, lifting her glass. "You didn't let the story harden you." Noah considered that. "I tried not to let it define me." That too. Later, after she left, Noah stood by the window and watched a couple argue on the sidewalk below, hands waving, words sharp. He felt a pang of recognition. Then, relief. He wasn't there anymore. He didn't need to be. Over the next weeks, he noticed how the absence of crisis made room for curiosity. He signed up for a weekend photography class, took a train to a nearby town on a whim, cooked a complicated recipe just to see if he could. These weren't grand gestures. They were quiet votes of confidence cast in his own direction. One afternoon, while sorting old files, he found the tie he'd been wearing the night of the party, the night he'd been told not to come. He held it for a moment, then placed it in a donation box, not as a symbol of loss, as proof of movement. At therapy, he spoke about forgiveness not of Vivian, but of himself. "I stayed because I believed leaving meant failing," he said. "And now?" the therapist asked. "Now I know leaving was the first honest thing I did." The work continued. Healing was not linear. Some mornings he woke with a tightness he couldn't name. On those days, he ran, or wrote, or called someone who knew him before the narrowing. The tightness passed. It always did. One evening, as he prepared dinner, his phone buzzed with a message from an unfamiliar number. "This is Lena," it read. "I wanted to tell you I got the promotion. Legit this time." Noah smiled and typed back. "You earned it," she replied with a simple heart. He set the phone down and stirred the pot, humming to himself. The sound surprised him. It had been a long time since music had come out of him without effort. When the public summary faded from conversation as scandals do, Noah noticed something else fade with it. The urge to explain himself. His life didn't need footnotes anymore. On a clear Sunday morning, he attended a small outdoor exhibit by the river. Local artists, folding chairs, children running between sculptures. He sat in the sun and let the ordinary beauty settle. A woman nearby asked if the seat next to him was taken. "No," he said, smiling. "Go ahead." They talked casually about the weather, the art, the city. No stakes, no stories exchanged beyond what fit in the moment. When she left, she waved. Noah waved back, unburdened by expectation. As the sun dipped, he walked home, thinking of how the story had shifted not with fireworks, but with permission. Permission to be present, to take up space, to choose. He unlocked his door and stepped inside, feeling the quiet greet him like an old friend. Whatever came next, love, solitude, something in between, he would meet it without shrinking. That, he realized, was the real ending. The invitation arrived in Noah's inbox on a Tuesday morning. Understated and professional. A regional leadership forum, panel discussions, networking, an optional evening reception by the river. He read it twice, not because he doubted it, but because a familiar reflex stirred the old instinct to ask whether he belonged. He accepted without overthinking. On the day of the forum, Noah arrived early. The venue was calm in the morning light, glass walls reflecting the river's slow movement. He checked in, took a badge, and found a seat near the aisle. As people filtered in, he noticed how different his body felt in these rooms now. Shoulders relaxed, breath steady. He wasn't scanning faces for approval. He was simply present. The panels were thoughtful, pragmatic. Conversations about accountability, culture, and repair. When the moderator asked for audience questions, Noah raised his hand. The motion surprised even him, smooth, unhesitant. "What systems are you building?" he asked. "To protect people who speak up before damage becomes public." The room quieted. The panelists exchanged looks, then answered carefully. It wasn't a perfect answer. It didn't need to be. The question itself landed, and Noah felt the ripple. A nod here, a note taken there. Recognition, without spectacle. During the break, a man approached him, offering coffee. "That was a good question," he said, grounded. "Thank you," Noah replied. They spoke briefly, nothing transactional, just shared observations. When the man left, Noah realized something else had changed. He wasn't measuring every interaction for consequence anymore. He could let moments be moments. The evening reception unfolded under strings of soft lights along the riverbank. Noah stood near the edge, watching the water catch reflections. He felt no urge to perform, no compulsion to explain his past. The story had moved on, and so had he. Across the crowd, he spotted Lena. She waved, smiling, confident, unguarded. They chatted easily, trading updates. She mentioned her new team, the relief of working without fear. Noah listened, genuinely glad. "You look lighter," she said. "I feel it," he replied. As the night deepened, Noah noticed a familiar presence at the far end of the gathering. Vivian stood near the railing, posture careful, expression neutral. She looked different, not diminished, but quieter, less certain. Their eyes met briefly. For a moment, the old gravity tugged at him. Years of shared history condensed into a single glance. He felt the echo of who he'd been, the man who would have crossed the space to manage her discomfort. He didn't move. Vivian hesitated, then approached him slowly, stopping a respectful distance away. "Hi," she said. "Hi," Noah replied. They stood in the ambient noise of conversation and water, neither rushing to fill the space. "I didn't know you'd be here," she said. "I didn't know you would either." She nodded. "I almost didn't come." "Me too," he said honestly. She looked at him then, really looked, as if recalibrating. "You seem different." "So do you," Noah replied, without judgment. A pause. I wanted to say. She stopped herself, then continued. I'm rebuilding. Slowly. I hope it's healthy, Noah said. She flinched, then smiled faintly. Me too. Another pause. The past pressed close, then loosened its grip. I won't keep you, Vivian said. I just wanted to acknowledge this. Noah nodded. I appreciate that. She turned to leave, then glanced back. You were never predictable, she said quietly. I was wrong about that. Noah watched her go, feeling no triumph, no ache, just closure, the kind that doesn't announce itself, but settles. Later, as the reception wound down, Noah walked home along the river. The night air was cool, steady. He thought about the long arc of the story, the humiliation that had once felt defining, the silence he'd mistaken for peace, the courage that had arrived, not as a roar, but as a decision. At home, he cooked a late meal and sat by the window. He wrote for a while notes, not confessions, observations about space and voice, about how dignity returned when he stopped negotiating it away. A message arrived from Ethan. Forum went well. Noah smiled. It did. Good, Ethan replied. You asked the right question. Noah turned off his phone and let the quiet expand. In the following days, opportunities appeared, not dramatic, not overwhelming. A project lead role, an invitation to mentor, a chance to build something with intention. He accepted some, declined others, trusting the sense he was learning to honor. On Sunday morning, he attended a small community cleanup by the river. Gloves on, trash bags in hand, he worked alongside strangers. The work was simple, tangible. When they finished, they stood back and admired the cleared path. Someone laughed. Someone clapped. It felt good to improve a small corner of the world and leave without applause. As he walked home, Noah caught his reflection in a storefront window. He stopped, not out of vanity, but curiosity. The man looking back wasn't hardened or heroic. He was present. That was enough. He unlocked his door, stepped inside, and set his keys down with care. The apartment greeted him with familiar quiet. The story wasn't over. Stories rarely were. But this chapter, this turning, had done its work. Noah made tea and watched the steam rise, thinking of the night he'd been told not to come. How small that command seemed now. How powerless. He smiled to himself. A private acknowledgement of distance traveled. He had come into himself, into his life fully. At last, the consequences arrived without ceremony. No dramatic announcements, no gavel strikes, just emails, quiet meetings, and the slow rearranging of power that happens when credibility runs out. Noah felt it first at work. Projects that had once stalled suddenly moved. Decisions were made without unnecessary detours. His name appeared on agendas, not as a favor, not as a token, but because his input had become reliable currency. He didn't savor it, he noticed it, filed it away, and kept going. Vivian's world, by contrast, narrowed. Word traveled in professional circles the way smoke did, soft at first, and then unmistakable. Her appeal failed quietly. The firm didn't argue in public. They didn't need to. The findings spoke for themselves, and the language of "for cause" followed her like a shadow. She called Noah once, late. He didn't answer. She left a voicemail he listened to only once. I'm packing, she said. I'm moving out of the city for a while. I thought you should know. He set the phone down and sat with the information. He didn't feel relief. He felt gravity. Endings, even necessary ones, carried weight. At the same time, Graham's name faded from conversation with an efficiency that bordered on cruelty. Resignations became biographies. Scandals became lessons. The industry closed ranks and moved on, as it always did. But the bar held. The quiet accountability lingered. People remembered. Noah met Ethan for coffee a few weeks later, the kind of meeting that didn't need an agenda. It's done, Ethan said. As done as it gets. Noah nodded. Thank you. Ethan studied him. You know what you did. Right. I asked questions, Noah said. You changed incentives, Ethan replied. That lasts. They sat in companionable silence. Outside, pedestrians hurried past, lives intersecting and separating without drama. On a Sunday afternoon, Noah visited the old apartment one final time to collect the last of his things. The place was empty now, echoing in a way that made every footstep sound deliberate. He moved room to room, checking drawers, closets, corners. There wasn't much left. The life they'd built together had been lighter than he remembered. In the bedroom, he paused at the window. The city looked the same from here. He wondered how many nights he'd stood in that exact spot, waiting for a key in the door, believing patience would be rewarded. He felt tenderness for that man. He felt distance too. He locked up and left the keys with the building manager, declining the offer to reminisce. Outside, the air was crisp. He breathed deeply and walked away without looking back. That evening, Maya invited him to dinner with friends, new friends, old friends, a mix that felt intentional. They ate, laughed, argued about movies. No one asked him to summarize the past. No one needed him to perform resilience. He simply existed among people, and that felt like progress. Later, alone at home, Noah opened his notebook and wrote a single sentence. I didn't lose my life. I got it back. The days that followed were not perfect. Some mornings he woke with a heaviness that surprised him. On those days, he moved gently. He ran slower. He called someone who knew him well. He let the feeling pass without attaching a story to it. The heaviness came less often. When it did, it left faster. He accepted a mentoring role through work, meeting monthly with 2 junior analysts. He listened more than he spoke. When they asked about boundaries and visibility, he answered plainly. Your work matters, he said, but so does your name. Don't lend it lightly. They nodded, absorbing more than the words. One afternoon, Noah received a forwarded message from Ethan, a short note from a regulator thanking participants for their cooperation. No fanfare, just closure. Noah archived it and closed the folder, satisfied. That night, he attended a small concert by the river. Nothing famous, just local musicians under soft lights. He stood near the back, feeling the music move through him. When the crowd applauded, he clapped too, anonymous and content. As he walked home, he passed a couple arguing on a bridge. The words were sharp, familiar. He slowed, not to eavesdrop, but to notice his own reaction. His chest didn't tighten, his steps didn't falter. He kept walking. At home, he made a list not of goals, but of practices. Sleep, movement, saying no early, asking questions when something didn't feel right, trusting the first signal, not the 10th. Weeks later, a postcard arrived from Vivian. No address, just a few lines. I'm somewhere quiet. I'm learning how to live without performing. I hope you are too. Noah read it once and placed it in the same drawer as her letter. He didn't feel compelled to respond. He didn't feel unkind. He felt complete. The city shifted into a new season. Leaves turned. Light changed. Noah adjusted without noticing the effort. He hosted a small dinner at his place. Simple food, open windows, laughter that lingered. When the night ended, he cleaned up slowly, grateful. Standing at the sink, he caught his reflection in the darkened window. The man there looked steady, not triumphant, not wounded, whole enough. He turned off the lights and went to bed, carrying with him the quiet satisfaction of consequences that fit the actions, and a life no longer arranged around someone else's comfort. The chapter closed without applause, without vengeance, with balance restored, and that was exactly how it should end. Sometimes betrayal doesn't arrive as a loud explosion. Sometimes it comes as a quiet sentence. Don't come, you'll embarrass me. And if we're not careful, we start believing that shrinking ourselves is the price of love. This story isn't just about infidelity or ambition gone wrong. It's about how easily self-respect can erode when silence feels safer than truth. Noah didn't become strong overnight. He didn't win by shouting or seeking revenge. He won the moment he stopped asking for permission to exist, the moment he chose clarity over comfort, honesty over habit. Life has a way of testing us through injustice, not to break us, but to reveal where we've been abandoning ourselves. And healing doesn't mean everything stops hurting. It means you finally stop bleeding in places that aren't yours to protect. If this story resonated with you, I'd love to hear your thoughts. Leave a comment and share how it made you feel, or what lessons stood out most to you. And if you want more cinematic, emotional stories about betrayal, growth, and reclaiming self-worth, subscribe to the channel. Your support helps these stories reach the people who need them most.